Good afternoon. My name is Ben Potter. I've been with CIP for about 9 to 10 months right now. I've got 5 years SOLIDWORKS experience. About half of that is actually in industry, and the other half is from college and from here. I'm a certified SOLIDWORKS expert, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the essential design tools. So this is kind of the core functionality of SOLIDWORKS, your drawings, your parts, your assemblies, things that most users will use every single day. And so I'm going to talk about the new enhancements that they have brought in SOLIDWORKS 2018. We're going to start out with the user experience. There's a new welcome screen, which is kind of a one-stop shop for a lot of useful links and parts that you've been working on. Assembly open progress indicator, assembly performance visualization. These have seen improvements and are new to give you a better understanding of your assemblies. Top level transparency, color-coded folders, mouse gestures, and select over geometry. Some of these are new improvements, and some of these are existing things that have seen enhancements to make users more productive. So we're going to get into SOLIDWORKS. When you open 2018, you'll be greeted with the new welcome screen. You can also access it from the toolbar with a little house button, little home button. And from here we can open parts, assemblies, or drawings. We can make the new ones. We have access to our most recent documents, or if we pinned any. Recent folders, so we can quickly get to a folder instead of having to dig through our file explorer. Resources such as customer portal or My SOLIDWORKS links. The Learn tab, you can get to tutorials or My SOLIDWORKS again with their training videos, and some sample parts. And then the Alerts tab allows you to see recent development from SOLIDWORKS. So you see here SP5 is now available and some early visibility on 2018 SP1. So from here we'll launch our assembly. And as this assembly opens, you'll be able to see the new open progress indicator. We see there's a elapsed time. So this allows you to see how long it's taking. And then there's a last time open, so you see about how long it took to open. It also keeps you up to date on where it's at, whether it's opening the components, rebuilding the assembly, and finally rendering the graphics. And now that it's open, we're going to look at the improvements to the performance evaluation. So they've added more to this. There's the open performance, graphics triangles, shaded image quality, overall image quality. So you can open these up and see that we got a few here that are kind of high compared to the others. So you may come into these and lower them in different ways to improve the computer's performance. From here we can access the assembly visualization tool. And this opens up the new tab within Assembly Visualization Performance Analysis. So this gives us all of our performance, like graphics triangles, open time, rebuild time, so we can graphically see which parts are problematic. We'll take a look at this little USB cover down here. It's very high in graphics triangles. So we'll go ahead and just switch that to a lower detail, which will actually remove it. And you see it immediately drops down in our visualization so that we know that it has been corrected. And so now we're going to take a look at the top level transparency. So from here I can set the entire assembly transparent. Very useful when you need to have sub-assemblies that are transparent. You can just go to those sub-assemblies and set all of them transparent instead of having to go to each individual component. We can also do this, instead of having to create alternate display states, things like that. I'm going to go ahead and close out of there and open this, close that. There we go. So folders are always a nice way to organize our assemblies, especially when they get quite large. And in 2018, they are color-coded. So if I suppress this item, we'll see that the locker folder now shows a color, letting me know that that folder contains a suppressed item. If I hide this one, the shower folder now shows that it is containing a hidden item. And we have multiples, so if I hide this, then the folder will display that. This is a nice way so you can, if you have items suppressed or hidden within a folder structure, you don't have to wonder where that item is. You can easily see which folders contain those. Mouse gestures have seen improvement in 2018. So currently you can have, 4 or 8. Now you can have you can start from 2, whether vertical or horizontal, 3, 4, 8, all the way up to 12. And adding commands is very easy. You just drag and drop them into the wheels, and you can control drag to move the same command to another wheel. You can print out a guide to have at your desk if you need for a reference. And those are the the improvements to mouse gesture wheel, so you can have a lot of commands very easily accessible. And then sometimes we find we're zoomed in like this, and we need to select a couple of things with a box select or a lasso select, and we have to start out here in open space. Well, now from the select drop down, or with the hotkey T, we can turn on select over geometry, which allows us to do just that. And it does support control clicking, so I can select just what I need, and then I'll just hide these with my mouse gestures. And so that's kind of that's where we're going to start. This is just gives you a good idea of where SOLIDWORKS is going with making the user more productive, minimizing workflows, and just really focusing on ease of use. And they've carried that over into assemblies. There's a new rotate with linear pattern. It saves a lot of time if you've got a use for that. The ability to hide faces during mates is very nice and beneficial, especially with working with maybe tight corners or complicated geometry where the select other is just not convenient. Misaligned mates, very useful for third party or files you may get off the internet, where bolt holes or the pegs that something it may have just aren't quite the dimension that it says it's supposed to be. And then a smart explode line allows you to very easily create exploded lines in your exploded views so that you can better understand how your assembly goes together. And we're going to get back into SOLIDWORKS and take a look at this. So we'll open this up real quick. There we go. And currently we'd have to bring in this branch a couple more times and then use a few mates per branch to get it exactly the way we need. But in 2018 I can just edit this linear pattern, add in my instances, and then use the rotate instances checkbox, select the face I want to rotate about, and now I can easily put in the degrees that I want and finish the mug. Very quick, very efficient. We'll get back to our assembly, and we're going to finish this burner assembly here. So we've got this burner that needs to be mated down into the housing. Within the mate commander, I can use the Alt key to hide a face. I can continue through, and then if I went too far like I did here, Shift Alt will just bring those faces right back. So I'll quickly get to the face that I need, go ahead and mate it in, and then we'll take a look at the holes on the back side here. So we see, this one is mated in concentric, but this peg is a little bit off. So in 2018, we can go ahead and create a concentric misaligned mate, and we can have it aligned on either peg, or we can do it symmetric. And as we'll see here, we have a deviation, and we can set that within the document properties, or we can override it here, so that if you want to have misaligned mate option, you can control the maximum deviation that is even allowed. And then see here, this is it tells you this is not acceptable and you can't create it, so we'll make it acceptable. And now we can go ahead and create that misaligned mate. Now some places may not want to have that option, and SOLIDWORKS has taken that into account. And under System Options, Assemblies, there is the Allow Creation of Misaligned Mates. And you uncheck that, and you can no longer create misalignment. So your company, or even if as a user you don't want to have that option, you can control that. Now for exploded lines, we're going to open up this assembly here. And exploded views are always a nice way to see all the parts within an assembly, and explode lines just further expound upon that, giving you better understanding of how that assembly goes together. So within the exploded view, I can do the Smart Explode Lines option, and we'll take a look here. And all the explode lines default to the bounding box. I can easily drag it around to another edge that I want. And for multiple instances, like these 4 bolts here, when I drag one where I want it, I get the apply to all component instances, and I can just quickly select that, and all these 4 bolts now change. So I like that. We'll go ahead and say OK. Take a look at it. And these explode lines, fully real time, so I can just select what I want, go ahead and move it around while I'm still trying to figure out how I want the exploded view to look, and they update immediately. This shows what SOLIDWORKS has brought to assemblies. Again, it allows you to build assemblies faster. That's their big focus with this essential design tools. These core elements is just really making the user's life easier with potentially tedious or cumbersome workflows. We're going to look at magnetic mates next, and here there's multiple ground planes. So if you use magnetic mates for plant layout, you can now use them for more complicated designs. The lock magnetic mate is more discoverable. It actually appears right at your cursor when you place a magnetic mate, and then you can also cycle through the mate connectors on both the dynamic and static part, so that you can get the exact 2 that you want without any hassle. And then with layouts, a lot of times they're very large, you may use speed packs. There's now an update speed packs automatically option within system options. So back in SOLIDWORKS, I'm going to go ahead and open up my conveyor belt and then my plant layout. So we're going to be placing this into our layout. There it is. And you've seen for all of these assemblies, the open progress indicator keeps showing, and you can have that. You can actually minimize a little bit of it, so it's just the bar, or there's a checkbox that says don't show if you don't want to have it. So here we now have a ground plane folder, and I have my 2 ground planes. I'm going to just make the mezzanine active, and then I'll zoom in and show you this. So we'll insert our conveyor, and using the open bracket key, I can cycle through the dynamic parts connectors. And using the close bracket key, I can cycle through the static part. And then once I have the 2 that I need, when I place it, you'll see the lock appears right at my cursor. I don't have to go through menus, it's right there. Lock it in place, it's good to go. And then, as I said, from system options, assemblies, we can now update out-of-date speed packs when saving, whether all, none, or if I set a save mark on it. So that's very nice. Make sure your speed packs are always up to date. That's the enhancements to magnetic mates. Again, focus on user productivity. Next, we're going to look at sketching. So SOLIDWORKS has continued with their idea of 2018 making things easier. So they've enhanced some existing workflows. They've added some new capabilities and flexibility with geometry, specifically 3D sketches. Very nice if you do a lot of weldments, things like that. These improvements may benefit you greatly. We'll get it back into our SOLIDWORKS and open this chassis. And you see that there's a sketch in there, and that's what we're going to complete. So we'll zoom in here, and then we'll go ahead and just open up this part. Now immediately we notice that this does not look right. So I'm going to zoom in, and we'll edit the sketch. And currently I'd probably have to delete this and redo it, but now I can just right click on it and do the reverse endpoint tangent option, and it will switch the tangent sheet at my endpoints. So very easily fix that without having to delete or redo any of my dimensions. And so this is one of the biggest things with sketches now, is that 3D sketches can now be mirrored. So any symmetrical 3D sketch you have, you can now basically half the time to create it because you can just mirror it. And reference planes are now allowed in both 2D and 3D as the mirror about option. So I'll go ahead and select that and finish my sketch. And it's fully associative, so I can come in here and change that, and it updates, the mirror updates immediately. So I'll go ahead and get out of that and then finish my sweep. Go check it back in our assembly. Looks good, you know, so something that would have potentially taken quite a while to make that other half, the other half of that 3D sketch was done with just a few clicks thanks to the new 3D mirroring capability. There's also, as you see here, the auto rotate view on sketch edit. This is within your options. Currently, when we create a new sketch, it will automatically rotate to that normal 2 view. Well, you can now have it where it will do that on editing a sketch too. So you can quickly get into that normal 2 view so that you don't have to click edit sketch, then go and select the normal 2. Sheet metal now has a normal cut feature. So as we see here in this upper image, this is a cut that was not normal to the face, and sending that to a machine shop or out to the floor may cause some problems because it's in a drawing will look very very different. So now we can create a normal cut, and this is a completely separate feature than the original cut. You select the inner faces and it will normalize the cut. So that way you can send that to a machine shop, and it's a completely separate feature. It doesn't interfere with the original cut, so you have options with how you want to treat it. There's a new 3-corner relief in the suitcase corner relief. These are very commonly found on computer cases. It gives a little spherical amount of material in the corner. So these can now be created within sheet metal. And this is an increased flexibility with the sheet metal features. And then one of the big enhancements is the new tab and slot feature. So this is because of an industry shift to self-fixturing assemblies. Minimizes the fixturing cost and the setup time of having external fixtures, and it maximizes the assembly precision, because if the assembly isn't precise, then it won't self-fixture to itself, and so if it doesn't go together, it's out. It's a kind of a no-go sort of situation. So we'll get it back into our SOLIDWORKS here and take a look at the new tab and slot feature. So it is found in the sheet metal tab. It is not limited to sheet metal. It can work with multi-body parts, single body parts, assemblies, weldments. It is just found within sheet metal. So when we turn it on, we select the edge with which the tab will generate from and the surface in which it will terminate at, or the slot will be kind of in. From there, we can add our instances. So I'll add 4, and you see this one's on the edge and this one's got a little offset. There is an offset capability here. I'm going to go ahead and just turn that off. But so we can control the offset. We can have them equal spaced, or we can have a specified spacing length over as we see here. And then we can change how long we want it. We can change the height, whether it's a blind, up to surface, or offset from surface. And then we can also add corners, so fillets or chamfers. And then finally you can add a slot tolerance or clearance. So we're good there. I'll go ahead and say OK. And these are fully customizable and editable, so I can go back into this one and just make a new group real quick and add in another tab and slot right there. And then we'll take a look at our exploded view. And there's our 4 tabs, 4 slots, 1 tab, 1 slot. So very easy, don't have to make a couple sketches for extruding or extrude cuts, don't have to do linear patterns. I can make my tab and my slots very nice and easy and quick. And so we can use these on cylindrical parts currently, as we see here. We can also use them with a pattern and mirror, so you don't have to make a whole bunch of tab and slots if you've got something mirrored or patterned. So here we see we have this one tab and slot. You see here we got a part and a part, so this is in an assembly. And take our tab and slot, and they just circle patterned it around, and then we create this tab and just mirror it across. So we don't have to have a whole bunch of tab and slots. And again, it is not limited to sheet metal, single body, multi-body, assemblies. See that there's a weldment table here, which is fully self-supporting. So it's a very nice tool, very efficient. So now that we've seen all of the kind of the ways and things that they've enhanced making parts, now we've got to deliver on that. We got to make our 2D drawings. And so if you have MBD or if you use MBD, there's now a better integration between that. The views and PMI information within MBD can now be very easily dragged right into a 2D drawing. There's better control and flexibility on annotations. There's new annotations and enhancements to just the control over them. And then views have seen improvement, specifically the broken out section view. You can now apply that to a section view as well as an alternate position view. So you can get more information in a single view, saving you, drawing space or potentially a whole nother sheet. And then there's also been some drafts, a new draft symbol category for symbols with a plus minus draft, parting line, diamond, parting line, and draft tolerances. So we'll go back into SOLIDWORKS and see these improvements to drawings. From our view palette, when we import annotations, there's now a 3D annotation option. And down in our views, we have 3D in parentheses here, that these are from MBD. And I can drag them in, and all of their PMI information comes in with them. Having to recreate these as a 2D drawing would have been a hassle. Is now done with just dragging 3 views in with the work I already did in MBD. So next we're going to look at the annotation improvements. Advanced holes are very nice, and now in 2018 the whole callout can do advanced holes. So we can take this somewhat complicated hole and easily create our callout without having to type all that out. And we can reverse the callout order, or we can switch the near and far side depending on our preference. And now layers, you can assign colors to layers. So for this hatching here, we'll add it to the hatching layer and the color will update. So that's nice. You can assign different things to the layers that you need and have that color come through. And then trailing zeros have seen improvement. Better control within the system or the document properties. So under dimensions, you have your trailing zeros now have dimensions, a tolerance, and properties, and these aren't locked anymore. So when we say show, it'll give you a message when you first use 2018, letting you know that this no longer is how we do it, and we give you all the options and the control. So for our tolerances, we're just going to go ahead and remove them because we don't need them, maybe per our standard or per an industry standard, and we'll say OK. And they immediately go, but I keep my trailing zeros on my dimensions. So next we'll look at the broken out section view. Here I have a section view, and I want to apply a broken out section to that. And that is capable with the new randomized scale. So when I do that and say OK, it will randomize the hatching scale so that we can better understand the model. See here we got a nice dense hatching here and the normal kind of hatching here. So more understanding in a single view. And then we'll move over to our alternate position view, and we can add another broken out section to it. This is helpful because you can have more information in a single view giving you a capability to add more views that you need into a single sheet than having multiple sheets where your shop floor or the machine shop will have to flip through it. And the last thing we're going to look at for drawings is the all uppercase option. So if you've got an assembly, maybe you've got multiple users building the different parts, or you've got one user who's just not consistent with his descriptions, or however your company does it. And within a table, there's now the all uppercase option, which will, regardless of how it was typed in, it will raise all characters to uppercase, so that you don't have to go in and change all of them within the custom properties. So that saves a lot of time and keeps your tables looking very concise and complete. Flexibility with drawings overall and focus on making the user more productive. So now we're going to talk about some general enhancements for 2018, starting with the hole wizard. You can now preserve the hole size when changing hole type. Currently, if you change type, you may lose the hole size that you had selected. So here we have a counter bore size 10, and then to a tapped hole, and the size 10 is preserved. Now we know there's different thread counts. It will default to the first one, so the 1024 is just the first one within the drop down. But the biggest thing is it kept my 10, so if I need to change it maybe to 1032, I can just quickly drop that down and select the next one. And then hole elements can be created from baseline dimension setup, if that's how you want to create them. The measure tool now has a larger selection window, so you can have up to 6 things selected before you have to scroll over here or onto the right side. And then you can increase the font size, as well as one of the big things is you can now copy any of the dimensions to your clipboard and then use them in an equation, or just have it saved because you needed to measure a length because what you're going to extrude next needs to be that specific distance between 2 things. So that's very nice. And then hexaobular hardware has been added to the toolbox. So if you use this type of hardware, you can now access that from the design library. And then custom properties have seen a small improvement, but potentially a needed one. The inch mark, or the quotation mark, depending on how you look at it, is now capable of being used in descriptions and names of cutlass and things like that, so that it doesn't break the link. Currently, SOLIDWORKS uses quotes to denote the equation, and having essentially quotations within the equation breaks it. And that has been fixed in 2018. And then the new bounding box is a good enhancement. It automatically gives you the custom properties, or it fills out custom properties within your part for the bounding box, giving you the width, the height, and the depth. And you can go in and actually control the description of the bounding box within your document properties. You can control height, width, and depth however you want it. You can control it there. There's a few more options that you can control. And then one of the nice things is there's a select face capability. So here we have a default bounding box, but if I'm going to machine this, maybe for grain direction, or I know how I'm going to hold it within my machine, and I need to know kind of the actual stock size that I would need, you can select face, and it will generate using that face as sort of a ground plane to create a different bounding box, as we see here. And so these are the tools, the essential design tools that SOLIDWORKS has added to the core functionality of SOLIDWORKS 2018. So that brings us to the end of the webinar. We will do the other 3 pillars probably after the holidays. So if you're interested in continuing to learn the new What's New 2018, stick around and look out for emails on those.